It is becoming more and more obvious that the concerns we face now are reflections of earlier times in the vast tapestry of human history. People have endured hardships that arouse the same emotions of tension and anxiety that we do now for ages. It is evident from history that worry is as old as mankind itself, whether it was Seneca bearing down on the oppressive weight of political despotism, or Marcus Aurelius facing the uncertainty of leadership during turbulent times. Think for a moment. Innumerable people have sailed the rough waters of unpredictable existence. From Socrates' fights against social conventions to Zeno's terrifying shipwreck that left him penniless, all of them had fears that are relatable to our current worries. Advancing in one's work, maintaining one's personal health, and the constant threat of disruptive change. The enduring character of these challenges is the reason Stoic philosophers gave the practice of emotion regulation so much consideration. They realized that although anxiety cannot be completely eradicated, it can be controlled. Anxiety is nothing new to me either. It frequently sneaks into my life, appearing as a shadow before significant events. However, I have found comfort in the Stoic teachings, learning techniques that can turn this fear into a source of strength instead of a crippling burden. Making the line between what is under our control and what is not is one of the great lessons to be learned from Stoic philosophy. Famously, Epictetus, a key proponent in Stoicism, questioned, "Is this something I can control?" This straightforward but insightful query acts as a compass, steering us clear of needless pain. When I start to feel anxious about a presentation I have coming up, or a conversation I'm afraid to have, I stop and ask myself, is this moment really within my control? The goal of this practice is to recognize that we frequently magnify our pain via needless anticipation, not to minimize our sensations. We generate a heavy load that takes our attention away from the here and now when we project our anxieties onto future events. Seneca observed astutely that he who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary. This insight emphasizes a vital point. A great deal of our fears stem from our imaginations, rather than from actual circumstances. The what-ifs take up so much of our time that we frequently lose sight of the beauty of the now. Consider a period in your life when you experienced anxiety in relation to a particular occasion, such a job interview or a family get-together. Your thoughts may have been racing with questions leading up to that point, like, what if I forget my lines? What if I'm not liked by them? What happens if I say anything wrong? Every one of these ideas takes us further away from the here and now, when we should be spending time getting ready, interacting with others, and just being ourselves. We can start to release the burden that many of these worries inflict on us by realizing that they are mostly uncontrollable. Premeditatio malorum, the Stoic habit of premeditating future tragedies, is a useful strategy to get through this, my beloved Stoic friends. This method helps us to empower ourselves to face obstacles head-on rather than wallow in hopelessness. When I anticipate a potential setback, I picture my response, how I might change course, adjust, and take lessons from it. When faced with a challenging question during a presentation, for instance, I mentally practice my answer rather than becoming anxious. By being prepared, I may turn my fear of the circumstance into a proactive attitude and approach it with confidence rather than fear. By doing this, I transition from apprehension to readiness and from fear to resilience. This idea, my dear friends, is like working on a stronger muscle. Think about it this way. Mental resilience is developed by constantly picturing, anticipating, and learning from challenges, just as physical strength is developed through repeated resistance. Research has demonstrated that mental rehearsal can dramatically improve performance and lower anxiety. Psychologists have shown that mental practice increases success rates for athletes, artists, and even someone getting ready to give a speech in front of an audience. Up to 20% better performance can be achieved through mental rehearsal, according to a meta-analysis of several research. This demonstrates the value of premeditation as a useful technique to develop resilience and confidence in the face of life's obstacles, as well as a mental workout. I always carry a small reminder with me that asks, "Is this in my control?" which might be a symbol or a phrase to help me stay grounded in these ideas. My dear Stoic friends, it's a straightforward yet meaningful question that acts as a compass when worry starts to go out of control. This concrete reminder aids in keeping me focused on the things I can control: my actions, my effort, and my mindset. Consider it a touchstone connecting us to our inner strength. It serves as a reminder that although I can't foresee every situation, I can control how I will react. The core of Stoic wisdom is this act of choosing, this determination of our internal state in the face of chaos outside. Just as Zeno's exposure treatment teaches us the value of confronting our concerns head-on, Stoicism does the same. Imagine being nervous about what people might think of you as you move through a crowded area. Most of us have at some point fallen victim to the illusion that everyone is watching everything we do. However, the majority of people are actually too wrapped up in their own life to pay attention to you while you're vulnerable. This observation is supported by science. Social psychology studies have shown the spotlight effect, in which people greatly overestimate the degree to which others notice their behavior and appearance. According to a study that was published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, individuals in the study thought they were seen by others much more than they actually were. This means that because reality is far less dramatic than the fiction our imaginations create, the embarrassing situations we dread typically lose their potency when we meet them. For example, when I make a mistake in a meeting, I no longer feel defeated. Instead, I see it as a common human experience. Not only are mistakes common, but they are also unavoidable. By reminding me that vulnerability is actually a bridge to connection rather than a barrier, this rephrasing lowers the perceived stakes. My dear Stoic friends, it is in these vulnerable moments that we find our true strength, because when we allow our shortcomings to be shown, we realize that these are what define us as human and bind us to each other. By putting these ideas into practice, we not only reduce our own anxiety, but also recover priceless moments that concern may have otherwise stolen. Think back to your life. How many opportunities have you lost out on due to fear or self-doubt? A study released by the National Science Foundation found that as many as 85% of the things people worry about never come to pass. However, how frequently do we let these baseless worries dictate how we live? How many times do we shy away from taking on a project, turn down an invitation, or stay silent during a conversation out of fear of failing? Just think about how these lost opportunities will affect our lives over time. By changing our viewpoint and realizing that fear is frequently an illusion, we allow ourselves the opportunity to completely experience life and welcome every moment without the looming threat of unjustified fear. Seneca once said, "Imagination is often our worst enemy, bringing us more misery than reality could." Sadly, this suffering in advance, my dear Stoic friends, is only a mental habit that causes us to create a series of increasingly distressing scenarios of future disaster. If we let these imagined worries control our decisions and behaviors, there's a risk that they will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. However, Stoicism serves as a reminder that we should use this mental practice of worst-case situations to strengthen rather than to weaken ourselves. The Stoics understood that pain is not caused by emotions per se. Rather, it is caused by our unconscious responses to these feelings. To understand and process emotions is to notice them as they come up and ask ourselves what is under our control, without negating their presence or criticizing ourselves for experiencing them. Reflective activities such as writing, meditation, or talking to a trusted confidant about our feelings are necessary so that we can better comprehend our concerns, rather than just living in them. One method to face these ideas is to write in a journal, my beloved Stoic buddies. Writing down my ideas in a notebook helps me to gain perspective and externalize my issues when I'm feeling overwhelmed. Writing out my worries helps me analyze them more critically, and I frequently discover that when I remove the emotional burden that my fears hold, they become less powerful. Writing about these anxieties is like illuminating a shadowy area of my mind. The darkness is suddenly illuminated. I may take a step back and ask myself, are these fears reasonable after I've spoken how I feel? Do they actually help me, or are they just getting in the way? Furthermore, critical thinking gives us the chance to rearrange the story we tell. Reinterpreting our experiences via a Stoic lens helps us to see that hardship is a necessary part of personal development. Difficult emotions are not seen as obstacles, but rather as doors leading to greater resilience. Just think, my dear friends, how life would be different if we viewed every feeling as a messenger, something to be understood, listened to, and learned from, rather than something to be avoided. We can move from feeling like we are victims of our feelings to actively interpreting our emotional landscape, thanks to this shift in viewpoint. To properly process emotions, you can also seek advice from a therapist or a trustworthy friend. In particular, therapy can be a very insightful process that gives us the knowledge and skills we need to comprehend and control our emotional reactions. For instance, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, which focuses on questioning erroneous thinking and rephrasing unfavorable beliefs, is strongly related to Stoic philosophy. My dear friends who practice Stoicism, the point is not to only get rid of discomfort, but to confront it with courage and interest and turn it into something constructive. When I talk to people about my difficulties, I frequently discover that they too go through similar things. This common experience makes me feel less alone and less burdened. The ultimate objective is to control our ideas and feelings rather than letting them control us. Every day, we have to question ourselves. Am I utilizing my imagination to advance or to ensnare myself in fear? When creativity is used to find constructive answers, it helps us create, adapt, and develop. Yet, when creativity is used to feed worry, it causes us to focus on unrealized scenarios. This decision, between a life of growth and a life of limitation, between embracing potential and hiding before imagined fears, is at the very heart of our journey, my lovely Stoic friends. It's important to keep in mind that our ideas have the capacity to either strengthen us or entangle us in a web of concern as we traverse the obstacles of life. Instead of letting myself sink into hopelessness during uncertain times, I try to focus my mental energy on doable actions and solutions. True freedom, according to Stoicism, is found in mastering our ideas and being able to discern between what is and is not under our control. The American Psychological Association reports that 72% of individuals say they are anxious about what lies ahead in life. This statistic sums up the difficulties we all face and emphasizes the need of adopting Stoic practices. It gives us the means to accept life's uncertainties as chances for personal growth and to face the unknown with resolution rather than dread. Recall, my friends, that the one thing that never changes in this constantly shifting world is our capacity to select how we respond. We may turn worry from a dangerous enemy into a tool for personal development and strengthen ourselves against life's storms by following the guidance of Stoic wisdom. Every obstacle turns into a chance to learn resiliency, and every fear into a chance to develop courage. Our real strength comes from conquering our internal reactions to life's events, rather than from trying to control external circumstances. As Marcus Aurelius famously stated, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This is the ultimate source of true power and true freedom. My dear Stoic friends, we also need to remind ourselves that our experience of well-being can be significantly impacted by even the perception of control. According to studies, those who feel that they have some influence over their situation are less likely to suffer from anxiety and sadness. This implies that even though we might not be able to control every external circumstance, realizing that we do have influence over how we react can greatly lessen our suffering. It is about accepting accountability, not for everything that occurs, but rather for the actions we do in response, the lessons we learn from each encounter, and the personal development we achieve as a result of every setback. Since this is the only time we really have, let's cherish the present, dear friends. We have no control over the past, and the future is still unknown, but we do have control over the present, the here and now. By doing this, day by day, we gradually recapture our tranquility and our strength. Recall that life is designed to be lived in the light of awareness, resiliency, and purpose, rather than in the darkness of fear. This light is provided by the Stoic path. Let's take it one mindful stride at a time. For a brief minute, picture yourself standing at the brink of a large sea with the waves pounding at your feet. Though you have no control over the tide or the waves, you do have a choice in how you respond to them. Do you run screaming from the water, or do you put your feet firmly in the sand and surrender to its might? The difficulties we face in life are a lot like those waves, my dear friends. They might be overwhelming, gentle, or entirely out of our control. The attitude we adopt and the steadiness with which we face whatever occurs are within our hands. We have the option to either grow or cower with each wave, and when we choose to grow, we discover that our concerns were never as great as we had thought. So let us, my dear Stoic friends, embrace the one thing that is genuinely within our control, our response, and face each day with courage. We restore our calm and become closer to living a life fully, one that is filled with power and purpose rather than terror, with every conscious stride. Hold fast, and let's travel this road together. Please remember to subscribe and like this video if you enjoyed these thoughts on Stoicism and personal development. One small step at a time, let's continue to learn and develop.